Good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon.
We get. Go ahead.
Good to see everybody. You know, you can blame Bob. I've been trying to meet you guys for like 3 months and he wouldn't let me. So now your anger is not to me, it's to Bob and Brett. No, in all seriousness, guys, super excited to be here. Super excited to work with you guys.
All right, we'll get started here with Mike K and then Rob Motti.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for doing this. With inheriting this roster, having worked under so many different coordinators, what type of approach did you want to take with this roster? Focus more on talent or focus on specific scheme angles, et cetera? And then also with your scouting background, how much input did you have on the draft picks, especially those day 3 selections?
Yeah, so getting here, I think I was most excited about the people that they had in place. We feel like it's a very talented defense, and that's a good job by Howie and his personnel staff to get some good people in here. So when the coaches got here, it was, we evaluated the people on the roster and then targeted people that we wanted to look to add in free agency and then obviously in the draft. So just super excited to work with the guys that are here right now. The scouting background that I had, it helped me to learn how to evaluate players. And we know that when you evaluate players, you want to try to have a very specific vision for what they're going to be doing. And I think we've done a good job with that.
Go ahead, Rob, and then Dave Zingaro.
Hey, Jonathan, good to meet you. The familiarity that you have with Nick, how much does that help you in your transition with a new team? And when we look at the Eagles secondary, last year they played a lot of man coverage. You guys played a lot of zone in Indy. Should we expect that to be something that's a staple of your defenses? And how do you feel about adapting your system to your players' strengths?
Yeah, super excited to work for Nick. We worked together for 3 years in Indy. And I've learned a lot of ball from him. And I always thought that he would be a really good head coach just because how he sees the game, how passionate he is, how he gets the players to play at a higher level than typically what they've done. As far as the man and zone thing, that's going to be predicated by who we have and who we're playing. So I believe in playing different styles of defense. There's more than one way to skin a cat, I think, and we're going to figure out, and we haven't done it yet because we've only had a week here or so with the players, but once we get into training camp, we're really going to evaluate, hey, what can our guys do? That's the first part of it, and then from there, who are we playing and what do we have to stop?
Go ahead, Dave, and then Bo Wolf.
Hey, it's nice to meet you. Do you prefer us to call you Jonathan or John?
I like Jonathan, but you can call me JG. If you call me John, the wife might.
I don't want to get on her bad side. We'll go with Jonathan.
Just call me JG, man. Guys come in, they say, "Hey, Coach Gannon, Coach Gannon." I was like, whoa. Stop calling me Coach. Just call me JG.
Okay, got it. As you're becoming a first-time defensive coordinator, is this something you've thought about this before? Have you thought about exactly, you mentioned the players will kind of dictate scheme, but along the way, what are some things you've picked up that you always thought, if I have my own defense, these are the things I want to implement?
Yeah, I was a defensive GA at the University of Louisville in 2006, and I started thinking about that. And knowing that I wasn't ready at that time to be a defensive coordinator. But I think as you go along the way and how my career went, I've worked under a lot of really good people, I feel. I've learned a lot of different things. And so you just kind of piece that together as you go along. And the main thing, though, when I got here, I didn't drop a book on the table and say, hey, this is what we're running. So, and if you actually ask the head coach, when we first talked about this, when he interviewed me, it was, hey, what scheme are you going to run? And I said, I don't have a scheme. And I believe, Dave, that you have to be adaptable. But the first thing is we got to figure out what our players can do, and then we got to put them in those situations as much as possible to utilize their strengths. The main thing for us is it's not what we play, it's how we play. And if you asked our players that, I think they know that from the jump, as far as we're going to run to the ball, we're going to out-hit people, we're going to take it away, and we're going to be smart. And those four things: hustle, intensity, take away, smart. The acronym for that is the HITS principle, and that's what we're going to hold our hat on. So, everyone runs the same stuff for the most part. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think the players have done a really good job of absorbing that and seeing the standard that we want from them, and can't wait to get out on the grass in August and show people.
Go ahead, Bo, and then John McMullen.
Hey, Jonathan, nice to meet you.
Hey,
I have
Bo,
two follow-ups to what you just said, if you don't mind. One, who was along that journey, who was the most influential to you in terms of the way that you view defense and coaching defense? And then two, everybody wants to take the ball away. How do you teach taking the ball away?
Yeah, so my first guy that I worked for in the NFL, I was defensive quality control in Atlanta, was Mike Zimmer, was a coordinator in Atlanta. And then kind of went our separate way, and then got back with him in Minnesota. So off the top of my head, Coach Zimmer was a huge influence on me, and he was a DB guy to start by trade. So that was pretty cool. Obviously in Indy, a complete different system under Matt Eberflus, and I feel like he really helped me fill in some gaps as far as like what you guys asked, like what do you want your defense to look like? And when you turn on the tape, like, what do you want to see? What does the owner want to see? What does the head coach want to see? A la the HITS principle. And learned a different style to play different from Coach Zimmer. Emmett Thomas, I was under him for a year. Jerry Gray, I was under for multiple years. Two guys that have played secondary at a very high level in the NFL. And that was eye-opening to me to say, hey, like, yeah, I believe in this technique for corners, but it's not one size fits all. So every player that you have is different, and it's our job to say, hey, this is what works for you. You can do that. Our staff is, that's what I love about our staff. We're not hard-headed. It's my way or the highway. That is not what this is about. It's about serving the players and getting them to hit their ceiling. Why? Because it's the best thing for the team and the defense, point blank. So we're going to do we take that mentality with everything that we do. So if we're going to walk up and press, well, this guy might not do the same thing that another guy does. Or if we're going to play off, well, this guy might play a little bit different than this other guy. So I think it's all about arming our players, seeing what they do, arming with them tools to put in their toolbox to be successful.
We'll go to John McMullen and then Les Bowen.
Hey, I'm going to go JG with you, Coach.
There you go, John. There you go. I love you already.
Want to talk about Mike a little bit in Minnesota, and you mentioned it's not what you do, how you do it, but he is kind of known for a couple things like sugaring the A gaps and putting the linebackers and crowding the center. Are there a couple things you sort of have to build out from to have as a base philosophy as a defensive coach in this league?
Yeah, I think that, with what Coach Zim did that was his way to put pressure on the offense, some of those looks that you just said. And he had a whole package off of it. But that package was based on the players that we had at the time. So are we going to do some of that? Yeah, probably. We'll probably do some of that if it fits to what our players can do and what is good versus the team that we're playing. Coach Zimmer has a very specific vision of how he wants to play defense, and I agree with a lot of that vision. Not to say that we're going to be exactly what Mike Zimmer was, because I feel like there's a lot of other good things that I've learned throughout the years that complement actually what Zims does. So that would be my answer to that. Just, that's probably part of our package, but we're not going to box ourselves into one scheme.
Go ahead, Les, and then John Clark.
Hi, Jonathan or JG, whatever you prefer. You had a chance, I'm sure, to watch film of last year's Eagles defense. I know you're going to be doing different things and you're going to, work with the personnel you have and so forth. But was there anything there as far as emphasis on this or that position that you saw that will be different from what you want to do in terms of what positions you prioritize in, having, premier players?
Well, I would say this. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Coach Schwartz, and obviously he's done this job at a very high level for a long time. And he has his way of playing, which I agree with a lot of that. As far as, prioritizing positions, one or the other, you need all 11. Like, I prioritize those. The drill that a lot of people do is, hey, rank the positions from 1 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was never comfortable with that exercise because they're all important. And, to say that, well, this position is a little more important than another position. Yeah, until that guy that you have at a lower ranking is not playing real well, and see how good the other guys play. So we feel like they're all 11 are very equal. Now, obviously you'd like some rushers and some coverage players. Those typically, the style of defense that we're going to play, you'd like to have those guys, but all 11 are very equally important. And with saying that, not just the 11 on the field, the 11 or so backups, because we feel like everybody has a certain skill set and they can bring something to the table. So, I'm not a big, hey, these 11 just play every down. I want everybody that has a jersey that game to play.
Will you want a defensive line rotation, a strict rotation, or will you have like the first 4 in almost all the snaps?
No, I think with the hustle part of the hits principle, one of those things is we're going to ask these guys to play extremely hard, which they did last year. It was I think, Philly's defense last year was probably in the top 5 as when I look at the tape as far as effort. I felt like Indy, we were in the top 5 as well. To do that, those big guys, you have to rotate them. So everybody that's up on game day, we feel like we want all those guys to play. You never wanted, 3 or 4 guys to be at 65 snaps and then 2 or 3 guys at 10 snaps. And I really learned that from Coach Eberflus. Like he would say, get the horses fresh. So he wanted those guys that were up. He wanted them rotated. He wanted them fresh. And depending on certain situations, you're going to have some certain guys in there because you're utilizing their strengths. But who's ever up on game day is going to play.
Thank you.
John and then Zach Berman.
Hey, Jonathan, good to talk with you.
You too.
Ryan Kerrigan says he chose to come to play for the Eagles because of your scheme. Maybe that was one of the top couple things. So why is it your scheme will really fit Ryan? And he says he was really recruited by you guys. How much did you want to get Ryan here?
I wanted to get Ryan here a lot. And the number one reason is the person that he is. So, we have a very good, strong locker room of really good character guys, I feel. And the pieces that we added, him being one of those pieces, the first thing that, Nick and I talked about with Howie was we want to bring really high character guys in here, whoever that be, whether it be draft picks or coaches or free agents. So that was appealing to us about Ryan because of the type of person he is. I guess I recruited him a little bit, maybe. At dinner. It was probably more the head coach. But super excited the versatility that he brings and the production that he brings. I mean, he's got, 95, 96, 97 sacks, I think, in his career. He's a hard guy to block. He's extremely intelligent. And so I'm looking forward to getting our hands on him and working with him.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Zach, and then Tim McManus.
Hey, Jonathan, nice to meet you virtually here.
You too.
And now you mentioned being a grad assistant at Louisville in 2006. If I can take you back, what was your path to get into coaching after that hip injury? What was the inflection point in climbing the ladder? And it sounded like you had some options this offseason. What made you choose Philly for the first defensive coordinator job?
Yeah, so I played as a freshman at University of Louisville, dislocated, broke my hip, hip replacement, tried to play, couldn't play. So the head coach at the time was Bobby Petrino. And he says, have you ever thought about coaching? And the answer I gave him was, yeah, high school football in Cleveland, Ohio, St. Ignatius, after I played 10 years in the pros. And he laughed. He said, well, you're not going to do that anymore. I said, yeah, okay, good. Thanks for stating the obvious. He says, why don't you start student assisting, graduate, and if you're good enough, I'll hire you as the defensive GA. So that's what I did. So that's kind of how I got into coaching. That's the path I went. And then as soon as I graduated, he made me the defensive GA. And my path was probably not normal to starting to climb the ladder because after 1 year being a GA, he took the head job with the Atlanta Falcons and brought me with him. So I was into the NFL at 24, and up until that point, all my goals and my mind was, hey, I'm going to, ascend the ladder in college. And I didn't even really know what a quality control was. And within a week, like I said, I was with Mike Zimmer and Emmett Thomas and Joe Witt Jr. And I said, I never want to go back to college. Like, this is the most best thing of all time. So that's, and what was the second part of the question?
The second part was what made you choose Philly? Because it sounded like you had some options this offseason as far as where to go.
It's Philadelphia. That's why. So that was a huge reason. Why I chose Philadelphia was Mr. Lurie, Howie Roseman, and Nick Sirianni. That's why I chose here. And my wife loves a good East Coast city.
Thank you.
We'll go to Tim and then Martin Frank.
Hey, Jonathan. The defensive line over the last handful of years under Schwartz was, largely pin their ears back, get after the quarterback, play the run on the way to the QB, kind of light on blitzing schematically. Is it safe to say that your defensive linemen are going to be a little bit more read and react? And how do you envision the amount that you're going to be heating people up with the blitz?
Well, again, I got to see them how we can play in August. So I think we got to get on the grass with them first and see what they can do. If certain guys can't, play in that jet style, then we're not going to ask them to play that way. If certain guys can really play the way that we want them to play, playing that jet style, then we're going to let them do that. I do think it is a blend of those things at the defensive line. I do know this, our defensive line is very strong, in my opinion. We have two really good defensive line coaches in Tracy Rocker and Jeremiah Washburn. And we're going to, let those guys be free and play. We feel like that's typically a strength that you have over any offense that you go up against is the defensive line versus the offensive line. And I told those guys in the meetings, I said, hey, there's going to be sometimes you're going to have to take some stress on, because to take some stress off of the back end. So it's always a blend of rush and cover and rush, how you play the run, what you're doing with the seventh defender in the back seven. Are you accounting them in the box? Or are you playing them deep? So I'm excited to figure that out with our guys. Hey, what is the best way to defend the team that we're playing, and which guys kind of do one or the other better and put them in those spots.
Go ahead, Martin, and then Jeff McLean.
Hi, Jonathan. Nice meeting you, obviously. I couldn't help but notice that there are quite a few guys on the roster from your time with the Vikings. And specifically, I was wanting to ask you about Eric Wilson and Anthony Harris, just kind of how you see those guys fitting into your defense and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, so I have a relationship with both players. When we sat down with Howie and the head coach, we talked about some certain positions that we kind of wanted to go out and fill to create depth and competition, honestly. And both of those guys, like Ryan, are super high character guys, and they're both very intelligent. So that was appealing to me when those guys became available, to add those guys to the groups that we had. Eric will start in. He can play all three spots, but for us, we're going to start him at Mike and Will, and see where it goes. And we think he's a good complement to the people that we have already on the roster.
Go ahead, Jeff, and then Ed Kratz.
Nice to meet you, Jonathan. A lot of what we know about Mike Zimmer's defense, obviously, is schematic, but also he's done a very good job of disguising coverages. So I want to understand a little more about how you go about teaching that and your approach to coaching guys up, because we know how important that is with quarterbacks. So many quarterbacks now, their ability to diagnose a defense pre-snap.
Yeah, excellent question. With Zim, he would tell you, give the players a lot of credit. And what I mean by that is he would say, hey, like, we're playing this coverage, but I don't want to have to spend a lot of time on the disguise portion. And Harrison Smith and Andrew Sendejo and Anthony Harris and Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, they would get in a meeting together and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. And then they would present it to Zim, and he would say, great. There were some looks that Zim wanted certain things pre-snap to affect the quarterback in his mind. So we'll do some of those things, and we will also let guys disguise on their own. We think that's important to give them some freedom before the ball is snapped, because they're in between the white lines, not us. So our disguise package will be a blend of allowing guys to roam free, and then there's going to be specific times that we want things to look a certain way pre-snap. Just to follow up with that question too, my answer as I'm thinking about it, everyone talks about, well, you want to pressure the quarterback. Well, in my opinion, one of those ways is pre-snap, not post-snap. So what you do is you want to make sure that offensive coordinators and quarterbacks right now are really, I feel like, ahead of where they were when I first got into the business, as far as knowing where to go with the ball immediately, or reading coverages, or getting to each progression where they need to get to with the ball. And you just want to put a little bit of seed of doubt in that quarterback's mind. Do I have that guy or do I not? So super excited because the defense that we have right now, a lot of smart guys, and it's a huge thing.
We have time for a few more, so we'll wrap up with Ed, Brandon, and then Nick.
Hey, Jonathan, nice to meet you. I'm curious, you've done a lot of work with defensive backs, in your past, and I'm wondering if there's any particular trait that you look for in your corners or in your safeties, any skill set, and then also the team looks very young on the outside at cornerback, aside from Darius Slay. I mean, are you comfortable with, the lack of experience at that position at this point in time?
Yeah, I would say the first trait that we look for on the back end is smart. So we want guys to be able to think. Obviously, we want with the outside guys, cover ability. And, you mentioned my expertise is that position in the back end. And again, like, I learned this from people as I got groomed coming up in the profession, is there's a lot of different ways to play corner, a lot. Within the same scheme, there's a lot of different ways for guys to function out there and play winning football. So that goes into figuring out what our guys can do, and then how can we help them and play a certain way. I'm very comfortable with that room right now. Denard Wilson, DK McDonald are doing an excellent job. They're two really good DB coaches. I've learned a ton from those guys in the last 4 months. It's been awesome. So very comfortable with that room. Excited to see them get out and compete. I think Slay can go to another level. I think the guys, everybody in that room can elevate their game and play winning football for us.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Let me follow that up real quick. Sorry to cut you off, Brandon. I love the youth. I love the youth because it's like you can mold them how you want to mold them. So, when I got to Indy, we had a bunch of young guys. It was awesome. It makes the job super fun because certain guys, certain vets, not all of them, but certain vets kind of stuck in their ways. Hey, I want to play this way. Well, if that's not the best thing for the defense, we don't want you to play that way. So I think for our guys, they've done a really good job of understanding the why behind what we're doing, to help those guys play. And we've only been 3 days on the grass, but in the meetings, it's been a really cool thing to see those guys, when you show them on tape, like, here's how we can play this way, we can play this way. And it creates a lot of enthusiasm and confidence with your guys.
So a lot was made about when the Eagles drafted Milton Williams, about Tom Donahoe didn't necessarily look the most thrilled about that pick, but the Eagles released a clip of you specifically, and you looked like you were super fired up when the Eagles drafted Milton Williams. I think you were like fist pumping and everything. So what had you so jacked about that pick?
I was super fired up about all the picks and all the free agents. I get fired up when we add people to the room. Milton, I was super fired up because A, his football character is through the roof. B, he is plays with a very high motor. For the D-line position, you guys will hear me talk about throughout the year, motor and mean. And we want guys that play really, really hard and they're really, really mean. And he fit that description. And he's very smart. He's very smart. So, he just understands blocking schemes, where the back's set, rush lanes. He was just talking to him. And I sat in on his interview when we interviewed him. Tracy and Wash ran the interview, and I sat in on it. And we closed it, and it was over. And I said, man, that dude is smart. Like, gets it. Just gets it. And he's got a very intense way about him, which I love, and that shows up on tape. So I was extremely excited to get Milton.
Wrap it up here with Nick.
Hi, JG. Nice to finally meet you.
You too,
I want to go back to your statement about, letting the guys kind of disguise on their own. What kind of trust factor needs to be, established there for that? And you have a lot of young guys on defense, but do you think that by the time you get to the start of the season, you're going to have guys that can do stuff like that?
Yeah, I definitely think with 4 weeks of practice, we'll get there. With that question, Nick, it just goes back to they have to understand where they fit within the call. And from there, that we give them a little flexibility to move around pre-snap. Now, when we first line up and play, we won't do that. But as we get going, I see it going that way because I truly do think it's hard for the offense and it's good for our guys because it gives them it allows them to use some of their tools in their tool belt. I can tell you right now, just from being in meetings with these guys, like I've been extremely pleased with the mindset of our guys. All of them were here this whole week, so we had the attendance or whatever. I'm not counting numbers, but they're all there. And when they don't have to be, which is awesome, it speaks to the character of the team and the defense. And I told them today, I said, I'm thankful for you guys being here because, the best part about our job is the players. So it was really cool this week, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks of what we can get done before we come back here at the end of July.
Thank you. Thanks, JG. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.